Hey everyone, and welcome to this analysis. We are about to embark on a truly fascinating journey today. For centuries, reports of strange creatures and seemingly mutant animals have sparked some pretty wild myths and legends. But what actually happens when we strip away the superstition and just look closely at the biology? Well, today, we're going to explore the actual science behind some of the most bizarre and misunderstood animal anomalies in the world. Get ready, because we're going to shift our perspective from fear of the unknown to a really deep appreciation for just how complex life can be.
Okay, let's dive into this. Think of this as our biological roadmap for today. We're going to be covering myths and scientific reality, embryonic division failures, duplications and extra limbs, the power of adaptation, and finally, genetics and human intervention. We are moving right from shock value myths to structured, empathetic science. Section 1. Myths and Scientific Reality, Deconstructing Legends. Historically, whenever an animal was born looking dramatically different, it almost instantly sparked human legends, superstitions, and tales of dark omens. But as we'll see, these bizarre appearances are firmly rooted in cellular biology, not magic.
Now, you've likely seen images online of goats with flat noses, close-set eyes, and unusually shaped mouths that make them look, well, eerily human. Our immediate superstitious reaction is often to assume dark omens or even throw around impossible claims of human DNA, but the actual cause is just a rare cranial malformation. During development, the facial bones simply grow compressed, they overlap, or they just fall out of position. I want to be perfectly clear here. There is absolutely zero human DNA involved. It's just a developmental glitch. In severe cases, these animals might also be born with shorter legs, a widened chest, and internal organ alterations, which sadly really reduces their chances of survival. But again, it's an embryonic issue, not a mythological one.
And this brings us to another condition that directly inspired ancient legends, Cyclopia. Just like the mythical Cyclops, an animal with this condition is born with only a single, centrally located eye cavity. Biologically speaking, this happens when the brain and facial structures fail to properly divide into two hemispheres during very early gestation. While the animal's fur and the rest of its body might look completely normal on the outside, there are almost always severely altered structures happening inside the brain, the nasal cavity, and other vital organs. Because of this, survival rates are incredibly low.
To humanize this clinical science a bit, let's look at the story of Clade. Clade was a kitten born in the Philippines with Cyclopia. While his striking appearance was a stark reminder of Greek mythology, the reality was heartbreakingly biological. Due to the severe internal alterations we were just talking about, little Clade only survived for a brief period. It's a really poignant reminder that behind every viral photo of a quote-unquote mutant animal, there is a fragile, living creature dealing with severe developmental hurdles.
Section 2. Embryonic division failures, the challenge of conjoined twins. Let's move to and see how this builds. We've talked about parts failing to divide, but what happens when the entire embryo begins to divide to form twins but stops halfway through?
Well, you get conditions like the two-headed snake. This pops up in species like pythons, rattlesnakes, and rat snakes. Because each head has its own functioning brain, they interpret their environment completely independently, even though they literally share the same body and vital organs. It creates a fascinating, yet incredibly dangerous conflict. One head might want to slither left to hide, while the other pulls right to hunt. They will fight over the exact same prey, and in some really intense cases, one head might even attack the other. Because of these immense difficulties in hunting and escaping predators, their survival rate in the wild is extremely low.
Now, this phenomenon isn't just limited to reptiles. Conjoined twin cats occur under the exact same biological premise, and this brilliantly illustrates the complete separation of consciousness within a shared physical form. They might be joined at the chest, the abdomen, or the spine. You can witness incredibly opposing behaviors. One kitten could be totally fast asleep while the other is wide awake and looking around. Now you might be wondering, can they be separated? That surgical survival depends entirely on what's going on inside. If they only share superficial tissues, surgery is definitely possible. But if they share a vital organ like a heart or a liver, separation becomes incredibly risky, if not impossible.
Let's look at conjoined twin turtles. They're usually joined at the plastron, which is the bottom part of the shell. Caused by genetics or even just fluctuations in temperature and humidity during incubation, these creatures require unbelievable teamwork to survive. Just imagine the sheer willpower required here. They have independent heads and legs. One turtle might have a highly agitated, super curious personality, while the other is naturally slow and cautious. Yet, to simply take a single step forward, they have to somehow find a way to coordinate their movements. It's wild, but with specialized care, some actually figure this out and survive for years. Section 3. Duplications and extra limbs, when the body multiplies. So we've seen what happens when things fail to divide. Now let's look at the exact opposite. What happens when embryonic tissues multiply when they definitely shouldn't? This brings us to polymelia, a condition where an animal is born with extra limbs. This happens when specific tissues duplicate during the embryo's formation. Now, these aren't just empty skin tags. These extra limbs can contain full bones, muscles, and blood vessels. For example, a chicken might be born with 4 legs. However, these extra legs rarely work normally. Instead of being a helpful adaptation, they usually just add unnecessary weight, severely hinder the animal's balance, and obstruct normal movement. Because of this, they frequently require veterinary intervention and surgical removal.
Another really striking example of duplication is a bird born with 2 beaks. This is a form of craniofacial duplication. Essentially, parts of the face develop twice, but it stops short of forming a complete second head. For these birds, survival hinges entirely on mechanics. If the duplicated beaks are positioned in a way that prevents the bird from closing its mouth, or if they block food from passing into the throat, it simply cannot survive. But if the anomaly is less severe and the 2 beaks happen to move together in tandem, the bird can actually manage to feed itself and live.
Section 4. The power of adaptation, the will to survive. Nature throws some massive anatomical challenges at these animals, but we are now going to pivot to one of my absolute favorite topics, how they actually fight to survive.
Take a look at this condition, anophthalmia. Due to genetics, infections, or gestational issues, some animals, like dogs, are born without any eyeballs developing at all. They are completely blind, literally, from the exact moment of birth. But what's absolutely astounding is how they overcome this.
So the crucial point here is how they adapt. Because dogs already naturally rely so heavily on their olfactory and auditory senses, a puppy born without eyes basically just dials those other senses up to the maximum. They memorize the layout of their environment with incredible precision. They map out walls, locate toys, and recognize humans almost flawlessly. But there is a major catch. They require a highly stable environment. Think about it like a mapped-out grid in their minds. If you just decide to move your living room furniture around one day, you are completely disrupting their entire mapped-out world. But as long as their environment is stable, they play, they fetch, and they learn commands just like any other dog.
And this brilliantly illustrates adaptation in the wild. The finless dolphin. A dorsal fin is absolutely essential for a dolphin to maintain stability while swimming. Being born without one due to a developmental glitch should, frankly, be a death sentence. Yet some adapt by working overtime with their side pectoral fins and radically adjusting how they move their tails. Furthermore, they leverage their social structure. They will intentionally swim right next to their pod, utilizing the slipstream, which is the water displacement created by the other dolphins, to help keep themselves stable and moving forward. It's physical and social adaptation working in perfect harmony.
Section 5. Genetics and human intervention, beyond the natural. We've spent time exploring anomalies of natural embryonic development, but as we enter our final section, we're shifting our focus to broader genetic conditions and, ultimately, what happens when humans step in. Let's spotlight Alba, a famous albino orangutan from Indonesia. Albinism is a genetic condition that completely halts the production of melanin. This means white hair, extremely pale skin, and highly light-sensitive eyes. For a wild primate, this is incredibly dangerous. It makes Alba highly visible to predators and highly vulnerable to severe sunburns. And sometimes, albino animals are even violently rejected by their own groups simply because they look so different. Yet, fascinatingly, despite these massive hurdles, her fundamental behaviors remain completely intact. She still plays, forages, bonds socially, and displays normal aggression. The core of the animal remains unchanged despite the dramatic outer mutation. Up until now, everything we've looked at has been a roll of the biological dice, natural anomalies. But I want to pose a question to you. What happens when the mutation is entirely intentional and man-made? Well, you get something like the Beefalo. Now, unlike everything else in this analysis, this is not a malformation. This is a carefully controlled, genetically engineered hybrid. You have the traits of the American bison, incredible resistance to freezing temperatures, survival in rugged environments, and low food foraging, combined directly with domestic cattle, which are bred purely for high agricultural productivity and meat yield. The Beefalo is humanity's attempt to merge these two together. It's essentially an animal that yields like a cow, but survives like a bison. However, this level of intervention leaves us with a major debate. If these hybrids breed uncontrollably, domestic cattle genes can bleed into wild bison populations, permanently altering their ancient genetics. So I want to leave you with this final thought to ponder. Is engineering something like the beefalo a brilliant, necessary agricultural tactic for human survival in harsh climates? Or is it a dangerous ecological risk that tampers with wild genetics? It's a really complex question, where biology, agriculture, and ethics all collide. Thank you so much for joining me on this analysis of the bizarre, the beautiful, and the scientifically complex. Keep asking questions and keep exploring.